Hello, UA followers. We're here with our new edition and our new show of UA Weekly Recap. Where we answer all of your pressing questions and rebuttals to some of our posts. We'll pick out a few, or we'll discuss overarching issues about our posts.
I got an answer for you people right now, but I can't show it because it's a family show.
Well, there we go. And speaking of family shows, Kevin has about 3 different families over the course of the 3 centuries he's been alive. I think he's 50 now. But we're going to talk about a few of our posts that did really well. First, I wanted to start off with, I think it was at the beginning of the week, was the executive order. I'm Will Ricciardella, and this is Kevin Ryan, by the way, WRKR. I want to start off with that Muslim ban that we hear, and the media was just, and we talked about this on the phone, I have never seen anything just so devoid of actual real facts, honest reporting in all my days. And you've been around, I think, since the contested Madison-Jefferson election in 1800. Have you seen anything? Have you seen anything that's been?
I have not seen anything like this since the Johnson administration. Andrew Johnson. All right, this is. I mean, it's insane. The level. I mean, no matter what you talk about, whether you talk about just the level of stupidity in the air right now, the level of how the media is just completely ignoring their responsibility to be fair. And I mean, it's not just the left. I mean, don't get me wrong. The right is also gone bonkers. I mean, they're drawing pictures of Trump as the God King Emperor, and you know, I've never been this afraid for our republic as at any point in my life as I am right now, because I think both sides, more so the left, because understandably they lost and they're going batshit crazy. Pardon my language. But I've never seen so many people so willing to throw away the Constitution and just overthrow Obama.
How about their credibility, Kevin? How about the CNN's just tossed their credibility out the window? No one trusts them.
CNN, I mean, CNN, you have to understand that many of you snot-nosed punks are too young to remember CNN when they were a good organization. I mean, 1990 actually, or was it 80? I forget. It was 1991, something like that. The first Gulf War. You went to CNN to find out what was going on, and you knew they were telling you the truth as far as they got it. They told you the truth, what they knew about the invasion of what is
Kuwait.
It? Iraq, yeah, Kuwait. They told you everything that they knew, and they said what they didn't know. It was a great organization for a lot of years. And almost within the span of a year, they threw it all away and decided to become the next MSNBC.
We praised them. I know I praised them during the primaries. I thought they did an excellent job during the Republican primaries, far better than Fox News was doing, which went full-blown, at first was opposed to Trump, then went full-blown Trump. And I saw CNN as being, Jake Tapper did a good job. Once the general started, forget it. It was just, the gloves were off. It was disgusting to watch. I can't watch. It's just, I turn it on, and I mean, it's like I want to pop my eardrums and gouge my eyes out. That's what CNN makes me want to do.
And the worst thing, I mean, it's bad enough actually to turn on any show on CNN nowadays, because you know you're going to get some unbalanced, skewed perspective. But I've been doing this every morning. Wake up and turn on the CNN website, and top to bottom, I mean, it's almost like Pravda used to be. It's just, it's nothing but, you know, one perspective, and there's no counter argument. There's nobody on the pro-Trump or right at CNN anymore, and if they are, they're hiding them way in the back pages, and that's too bad, because I used to see them as a balanced, at least somebody who would give both sides. They don't anymore. It's now become another MSNBC, and we've lost. I think they used to be the middle. There's no more middle in journalism, as far as I know.
Not even close. And let me ask you your personal opinion on this. Who's worse, Rachel Maddow or Sean Hannity?
Jeez, you know what I love to do, and I said this on UA. I love switching back and forth. And it's not so much because I love Maddow or I love Hannity. I can't stand either of them.
Oh, it's brutal.
It's that to hear the same issue from two polar opposite perspectives is very enlightening. It makes you understand what's happening with the world, with America right now, in terms of people being segregated into ideological baskets, and they never hear or see anything outside of their basket, outside of their echo chamber. And the difference between Maddow and Hannity is, it's like you're watching two different realities.
And Lou Dobbs, that guy, I could probably just punch Lou Dobbs in his teeth, and I wouldn't even feel bad about it. That's how devoid of actual any reporting standards he is. And look, I get that Maddow and Hannity are not journalists. I don't think they would purport to be. What do we call them? They do editorial stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, they're just unhinged. If I hear Hannity say fair trade one more time, I mean, it's like, come on, man. At least come up with an argument other than a buzzword. But let's get to the media, though, and they're reporting on the Muslim ban. I mean, I just put out a little thing today. They shopped around, found federal judges that are they looked probably for a long time to find a Bush-appointed one to rule against it, because that's exactly what they wanted. They knew that if they went around and found a liberal justice, we would all say that Obama stacked the courts. That was the reason why they got rid of the nuclear option in 2013, and that's exactly what Obama did. But it was a Muslim ban. It's like they can't, and I think you pointed this out, they can't separate the campaign rhetoric from what happened in actuality. And what it is a moratorium on immigration from 7 particular countries where radical Islam is prevalent, and it's for a short amount of time in order for us to bolster our vetting processes, right? So to make it more safe for American citizens. I don't understand okay. So 3 months for several of the places, and 4 months for Syria, obviously, because they've just had their infrastructure entirely destroyed. That is not unreasonable, nor is it unconstitutional. I put a piece of what was it? 90% of Muslims, right, aren't disallowed from coming here.
Yeah, 90% of the Muslim world is still welcome to come to America. Nothing has changed for them. And the orders in place for these 7 countries, they're not just applying to Muslims. They're applying to everybody in the country. So, and there's a lot of Christians in Syria and other places that all these other 7 countries that are also not allowed to come here. Now, that's not saying that they're targeting Christians. Clearly, this is targeting countries that are Muslim majority, but it's not targeting them because they're Muslim majority. It's targeting them for 2 reasons. Number one, a lot of terrorism activity occurs inside their borders. Number 2, they don't have the infrastructure in place. They don't have the government institutions in place to identify who each of their citizens are. And so what we're left with is, okay, here comes Abdul from Syria, and we've never heard of him. We asked Syria, well, where's this guy? Who is he? They don't have the data in place to tell us, well, Abdul is a good guy or is a bad guy. They just don't have it in place. And so if you look at the 7 countries, they're all either failed states, or in the case of like Iran, countries that don't cooperate with us. So we don't have the ability to figure out who the people are in these countries that are coming to us.
So the prior laws that were enacted, that were created so that we don't pick one racial group, one religious group over another in order to change the makeup of the racial or religious groups in the United States, doesn't apply here, correct? Because that's not what it's for. It's for national security reasons. It has nothing to do with their ethnicity, their nationality. It has to do with national security and where the countries pose the biggest threat to America and America's citizens, correct?
Yes, I will say this. I've looked at this order, and I'm doing I'm writing a frequently asked questions post about the order, and so I've looked at this thing in depth, and I will say there is one part of it that raises concern in terms of the courts. There is what could be construed as a religious test, and it talks about giving preference to minorities, persecuted minorities in these countries, in terms of who we're going to allow in as refugees and coming into the country. Well, they're all Muslim majority countries, so when you say a persecuted minority, you're kind of inferring that you're going to give preference to a Christian or some other religion. That is the one thing that I found in that order that I think might not stand up or could pose a challenge in court. Besides that, and you know better, you know the Constitution better than I do. But that's the only thing I found that in any way, in my opinion, would be challenged in court.
I look. That would be based on any partisan judge. Is it unconstitutional? No. If they're a persecuted minority in the country, and the persecuted minority isn't Islam or Muslims, that really wouldn't be much of a question for me if I were a judge to say it's a persecuted minority. It's predicated on religion. That's the problem with these things. That you can't discriminate based on this. Well, Muslim majorities and radical Islam discriminates against Christians there, and they're actively killing them. I think there was a report that came out that it's the most discriminated against religion in the world is Christianity.
And that, not just Christianity, but there are different sects in the Muslim world that are treated as bad, if not worse, by the Muslim majorities. So I think you're right. It all is going to depend on the judge, whether or not he sort of was appointed by a liberal versus a conservative, and how he views. Because you could view it both ways. You could view it as a religious test. That one line, not talking about the whole order, but that one line, you could construe. And that's the other thing, is that if they really do get to court, they could tailor the orders based on what they think is going to be questioned in court, and they could just remove it from the order. So, but the basic, the large majority of the court order is, in my opinion, not unconstitutional, and I think you agree. So
I would agree with you. Now we got to get to Neil Gorsuch.
Wait, before we get there, I just want to one more thing on this issue with the anti-Muslim ban. The media. Okay, now even my friends on the left are saying it's not an anti-Muslim ban at this point. But when during the height of this controversy, when it came out, it was being portrayed universally as an anti-Muslim ban. And I just want to read you some headlines, okay? The Huffington Post, which we all know is liberal, occasionally they do something that they try to make, looking at both sides of the issue. And here was the headline. They wanted to give the full court order. Read the court order halting parts of Trump's anti-Muslim ban. That was their headline. I mean, okay, I want to read the court order, but let's call it an anti-Muslim ban. That's incredible. MSNBC, the fallout of Trump's Muslim ban. The New York Times, Donald Trump's Muslim ban is cowardly and dangerous. New York Daily News, protests at JFK and airports around the country following Muslim travel ban. Christian Science Monitor, New York Magazine, New York Observer, Irish Times, and actually, I couldn't find a news site outside of America covering this fairly. It's because don't you think that, like, let's say that another publication sees the New York Times or the Washington Post cover it a certain way, then they call it, it must be an anti-Muslim ban without looking into it themselves? Yeah, it could be. They're doing what we do, except they don't actually look into it. Yeah, that's right. Well, I'm not even going to click on this headline. I'm just going to take it at face value. It's like, for the sake of getting it out, who can get it out first is really it's a rush to the top. That's right. So Gorsuch. Wow. So Gorsuch, same thing. I mean, here, I think there was a report that it came out that he started a fascist anti-communist club at this is hilarious, at Yale, I think it was, where he went to school. I'm sorry, it slipped my mind. I'm pretty sure it's Yale. But what it was him being funny in his yearbook, just saying, like, quipping, I was the Fascist Forever Club or something, He was trolling the faculty. Yeah. Because he literally said, in the yearbook it said, goes after the liberal faculty or something like that. And it was so obvious to anybody, especially young people. Right. There's so many trolls out there right now. You can recognize trolling when you see it. That was trolling. That's sure. All it was. And it was so funny when I wrote something on Gorsuch. I wrote a piece on originalism or textualism. I can't remember which one it was. People were posting, he started a fascist club. These people don't even look at it. They don't question it. And it was like, it was reputable news sites that they got it from, to their credit, which I think have lost, all credibility at this point. It's really just gone that far downhill that people think, I can share this is CNN or this is the, I don't know, the Telegraph or something. And it's just not even close to being true. And now I look at CNN
And I have to say, I still trust them on certain things where there's not a lot of, I don't know, there's
Room
not
for
a lot of like
editorial input.
exactly that, or it's not a heated issue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I do. But I mean, the guy is just an originalist. He's a textualist. They keep saying the seat was stolen. That is, there's no one owns the seat, and this was the first time in I think about 80 years that that a president has appointed a judge for the Supreme Court in a presidential election year. It just doesn't happen because obviously, that if the Republicans who were given the majority in the Senate and a majority in the House because they wanted to fight back against Obama's policy. The whole reason. It's the American people's seat, and they didn't want that guy in it. And it's that simple. That's how our republic works.
And here's a question for you. What was the name of the judge that they put up, that the Democrats put up?
Merrick Garland.
Merrick Garland. He was more centrist than I think they would have put up if it was 3 years from the election. All right. They probably would have put up somebody further to the left.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm speculating, but here's the thing. When Republicans opposed it and decided not to have nominations, they were really rolling the dice because everybody thought Trump was going to lose. Now let's put for a second, what happens if Trump loses? And
I think
Hillary,
Merrick Garland goes. I think they still.
You think so? You think Hillary would still?
But I get your point. Yeah, I think because look, if I'm looking at this from a constitutional angle, there's no such thing as a moderate. Either the Constitution says what it says or it doesn't. And I think that if you deviate from what it says, in as much as the Constitution's supposed to restrict the federal government, then you're to me you're a radical. I have a problem with judges telling us, the sovereign over the Constitution, how we're supposed to interpret it and what it means, and it's supposed to somehow relegate their power. I think that's kind of odd. So, I mean, textualism, originalism, I may have my problems with textualism, but that's the way to go about it, and that's it. The Constitution means what it says. That's not that difficult. It's not living. Not these principles, they're self-evident truths. I didn't hear Jefferson write, "Oh, these living things." What? You know what I mean?
Let me ask you a question. Have you? I'm going to reference a story I just read in the last couple of weeks. What do you think the difference is in terms of judges and how they rule between the most liberal and the most conservative? In terms of how often do you think they agree or disagree with each other? Let's say Sotomayor is on the far left and Clarence Thomas is on the far right. How often do you think that they disagree with each other?
That totally depends on the issue.
Just in total, all issues combined.
So the conservatives.
I'm not going to put you on. I'm not going to put you on the spot.
No, it's a good question. I mean, I would say that conservatives are guided by the original meaning, the original understanding, and they can't really move outside that realm. The leftists are unhinged. It's, well, whatever I feel like today. I have the fundamental rights doctrine. Why don't I just write in a right to marriage there? I have the incorporation doctrine. Why don't I just write in which incorporates the Bill of Rights to the states? And I have the fundamental rights doctrine too. Why don't I just write in a right to privacy? Whereas the conservative justices don't have that. They can't enact conservative policies. They sometimes, with matters of the Fourth Amendment and search and seizure, conservatives and liberals will agree, because liberals tend to be more anti kind of like drug crimes and the government searching people's person or property. So a lot of the times, like a Kagan or a Sotomayor will agree with a Scalia. I think there was a case with cell phones or something that they ruled a couple of years ago that they ruled that a cell phone is like having a file cabinet that's locked, and you'd have to get a warrant no matter if it's on their person. And you'll see a lot of alignment in that regards with civil rights, because the government, the document does protect civil rights from an originalist standpoint, and liberals, that's their little pet issue. But when it comes to anything else, it's about centralizing power for them, whereas the Constitution was about restricting federal power. So they're like, oh, well, let's just throw that crap out. We need a strong central government. This is a living document. So that's where you run into those problems. But I mean, Gorsuch is just he's the same thing as Scalia. The left just didn't want him in there. They're going to say everything. He's out of the mainstream, this and that. He was a Scalia type. Everybody praised Scalia. They had no problem confirming him to the 10th Circuit. So this is just all it's all partisan hackery. We can't escape it, Kevin. It's everywhere. It's in the media. No one's honest, and it's killing me. And we see it all the time on the page. And let's get into that with the Dodd-Frank law. I mean, we had a lot of people. You put a post up yesterday that was really popular, and the Dodd-Frank was really just a crony, corporatist handout to big banks, these big donors of primarily at this point, which is odd, Democrat candidates and some Republicans. They're not immune to it either. But if you look at the candidacies, I mean, Donald Trump wasn't the big banks guy. It was Hillary Clinton, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you really want to figure out what Dodd-Frank's all about, what you have to really realize is that as Donald Trump talks about replacing it or changing it or repealing it, big banks are lobbying against repealing Dodd-Frank. What does that tell you? All right. Now, the left is going to come up with an argument saying, well, that tells you that they realize that they need Dodd-Frank to keep them in line. No, please. Oh, please don't take it away.
So, Kevin, it's because these regulations.
Don't take it away. We'll start misbehaving again.
The regulations are so hard, or so costly for smaller banks, right?
Exactly.
So,
and that's why they're lobbying. And you can look up quotes from lobbyists and from people from big banks, essentially saying, no, we don't want to get rid of these laws.
I wonder if Bernie came out against Dodd-Frank for that reason. If he's this honest crusader for the people.
No. He and Elizabeth Warren have been trying to see which of the two of them can be give as much demagoguery on this issue as possible. Both of them are saying that what big Wall Street bankers are toasting champagne right now
as they protect them.
Yeah. It's complete. Then, if that's the case, why are they lobbying against repealing this?
We got to hammer Bernie and Elizabeth and Warren on this. I mean, these people think they're real crusaders for the little guy. This is unbelievable to me. It really is.
They're not. I mean, a lot of people on the left, and I'm not saying everybody, don't get me wrong, but a lot of, especially politicians on the left, are pseudo scared about these issues. For example, Hillary.
They're feigning fear.
Hillary herself, she thrived on this connection between regulation and enriching her corporatist friends. That's what she thrived on. Mm-hmm. She knew that the American people would support the kinds of regulations that sound like they're protecting Main Street, but actually are enriching Wall Street. And that's exactly what she did. It became very corporatist.
And you wrote a little piece on public choice theory and why politicians enact laws that sound good as opposed to ones that actually work, which was pretty good, I thought. You could find that on the page. But it's interesting to see what Republicans do here. I wrote a little editorial, where's Congress? I mean, it seems like a lot of these guys are worried about the big banks too, and they don't want to enact legislation that peels back Dodd-Frank. They can do this. They can put out a contract with America like Gingrich did, repeal Dodd-Frank, repeal Obamacare, pull back a lot of all this regulatory nonsense, pull back a lot of the power from the executive branch. They're not doing it. Congress is not doing anything. They're enjoying the president taking all the political heat. But
it's also because there still is a filibuster. Don't get me wrong. It's just, it doesn't apply to judicial appointments. Excuse me. But it still applies to SCOTUS. But they're talking about getting rid of it. But it also applies to every other piece of legislation. So they have to cooperate to a certain extent with Democrats to get, I forget, is it 52 to 48 right now?
Yep.
So they still have to get, what does that mean? They got to get 6 people on their side, 6 Democrats for every piece of legislation.
What's happening with Betsy DeVos right now is that Susan Collins there from Maine.
From Maine, yeah. And the Alaskan, the one from Alaska.
Murkowski.
Yeah. Totally paid off by the teachers unions. I think you did a post on that did.
Yeah. Exactly. They were bought and paid for by the teachers unions. Big labor strikes again. And it's odd that here's a guy who's won over the unions is Donald Trump. For some reason, these big, giant, powerful unions like the NEA, it seems like they're just not a fan of him. I think it's primarily based on the education issue. And it seems like the only union left that supports Democrats is the NEA.
But doesn't that scare you a little bit that unions are supporting Trump?
It scares me a lot.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, come on. Unions are the most anti-competitive anti-capitalist feature of America, frankly, and they're supporting
Just
Trump.
like corporations that work with government, unions are the same thing.
Exactly.
Corporations are for corporations like unions are for unions.
Why doesn't the left see this?
Because they don't care. They care about getting the union support and union money. Same like with
not the left politicians. I'm saying, why don't people on the left understand that big unions are just like big corporations in terms of how they try to conspire with government to get unfair.
That's a good question.
And why don't they see that?
And a friend of mine who's a constitutional scholar at a university nearby said to me, you know, Trump didn't run for people that wanted to start businesses. He ran for people that wanted to get a job, because the majority of people need jobs, and they all want to be part of a union. I'm for the worker. I am a worker. So the majority of people can identify with union workers or union labor and saying, you know what, my boss screws me over. You know what I mean? I don't want these people that are screwing over other workers. How about rights for us? And it's a really easy issue. It's a populist
argument.
That's right.
Trump's a populist.
That's total populism.
We've been saying that since Trump entered the ring.
Yep.
He is a populist, and the more support he gained, the more we were like, it's dangerous. I mean, populism is a very dangerous concept of giving the people what they think is right, of playing into what the people think is right, not because it's right. And again, this is the piece I wrote, you alluded to earlier, about politicians they'll support anything that you support. If enough Americans support something, a politician will put it through.
Yep.
Because it gets them elected. They don't care if it hurts you. They'll fight for it if they think there's enough of you that'll vote for them because they're supporting it, if that makes sense. So yeah, I mean, I think populism is very dangerous, and people out there in UA land, don't get us wrong. There's a lot of problems right now with the direction of Donald Trump and with the direction of.
I want to hammer this guy, but I
can't
can't, because the media is just so devoid of principle. I don't have enough time to write it.
It's like who to punch first.
Yeah, I can't. It's just so much material coming out from the left that I want to start going on the right, and I want to start nailing Trump from the standpoint of free markets, liberty, constitutional law. And you can't, because you have a media that they don't care about any of those things. It seems like there's this debate between Donald Trump and the media, and it seems to be amongst the left, like we've seen in other places in history. I mean, it's like you got this European left and the European right, and they're having at it. Then you have these, you know, American kind of more American-centered conservatives, classical liberals, libertarians that are about individuals. You know, the Republicans now the party of classes, the Democrats are the party of identities. And it's kind of left out more the more conservative, individualistic aspect of Americans, that they don't feel like they have a home. I'm not a white working class. I'm Will. You know what I mean? I'm not white. I'm not just some white guy that hates everyone else. I'm Will. I'm an individual. You know what I mean? And you have these.
But you are a white guy who hates everybody else. I mean,
well, just because I hate you doesn't mean I hate everyone else.
No, you do hate everyone. So
yeah, I do pretty much.
But I think that's what makes us friends. We hate.
Then that. But I mean, we're gonna start doing. I think we should do these every week just to recap. Maybe make them a little shorter, but we can upload them we can put them on YouTube. So if you guys,
I agree.
Check out our YouTube channel. There's a UA YouTube channel. We will be at I'll be at CPAC. I'll be doing some that live thing from my phone. You know, doing the live. Whatever the hell that is. I won't
be at CPAC this year, but I know some of the other guys will be, and I think everybody should watch that. It's going to be an interesting year. In fact, we were there. I don't know if you were there that day, but the day that Donald Trump came on stage, nobody took him seriously.
Oh, that was 2 years ago.
Was that 2 years ago? Yeah. And he came out there with Hannity. Hannity was kind of introducing him, throwing the football into the crowd and stuff. And it was like that's when everyone went for the bathroom break, because they wanted to see Rand Paul coming up next, and everybody thought Trump was going to be a joke. But CPAC it really is a place where a lot of developing things occur, and it's going to be interesting this year.
The real irony is he didn't show up last year because it wasn't a very Trump-friendly place. He knew he would have got booed, and he's the master of optics, so he didn't go.
One more thing, because I found it as we were talking. I asked you which Supreme Court justices agreed with each other the most and which did not agree with each other. The ones who did not agree with each other the most are no surprise here. Clarence Thomas and Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yeah, and that
But
represents both sides.
But they still agreed 62% of the time. Imagine that. I mean, for people out there who are trying to split America apart, who are trying to make it look like this is black and white. All right, more often than not, 62% of the time, the most liberal justice on the court agreed with the most conservative 62% of the time. And then the people who agreed with each other the most were, again, unsurprisingly, let's see here, let's see.
And what's interesting is, and people don't know this, that Ruth Bader Ginsburg came out against the Roe v. Wade decision, saying it was premature and probably an accident.
Yeah.
That it probably was, that the country was moving that way and it should have happened more organically. And she is a total living constitutionalist, whereas Clarence Thomas is a total, a broad originalist. I mean, he incorporates original intent, original understanding, and original public meaning. So, I mean, he's the most conservative you have, whereas the Scalia-Gorsuch types are far more narrow in their approach with textualism. But that's interesting.
This surprised me. All right, I just noticed this now, and this was not what I was remembering. The ones that agree the most, this is surprising. Kagan and Kennedy, 95% of the time.
Doesn't surprise me.
No?
No, Kennedy's kind of a, he's been the swing guy. He was appointed by Reagan, I think in '88, and he has been anything but an originalist. He was the guy that laid the foundation, declared Dome Constitution, laid the foundation, declare same-sex marriage is a right, which forces states to recognize that, and takes away the self-governance at the state level. Let the people decide. And I just think that that doesn't surprise me. So Kennedy's not my favorite, to say the least. Alito is great. Scalia was great. Thomas, excellent. And this Gorsuch guy, from all accounts, seems really good. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Sandra Day O'Connor, another Reagan appointee, was terrible.
No, that's a lot of them got away. A lot of them
they did.
Yeah.
All right, but thanks everybody. Let us know if you like the show. If you ever have any comments on our posts, remember that we'll do this. And if you have any legitimate concerns, if you're being kooky, you're probably not going to get any airtime. But if you have some legitimate concerns, we'll air them out here on the show for following weeks. And we'll follow our YouTube station, follow us on Facebook, and thanks for watching.